Hello everyone, happy April. If you're new here, my name is Bella and I love all things design and DIY. And so today we are outside. There are very few things that say spring to me more than pansies. And so today we're going to be creating some beautiful springtime urns. Every year my mom and I buy an inaugural flat of pansies, and it's always a debate what to do with them because they're so small. We have a pretty large outdoor space, and at this time of year there's barely any color. There's a little bit of green and there's the odd crocus popping up right now. But usually pansies are kind of the only thing that we can create color with outside at this time of year. And so it's always a debate where we want to put them. We have two iron urns out the front of our house that don't really get used. They're in a bit of a random area, so I thought let's move them to the back where we can actually enjoy them. So we have a patio in the backyard with a garden that creates a semicircle off the back. There's not a lot going on there right now, but it's a perennial bed that's filled with mostly purples and pinks. It has a little bit of a cottage garden sort of feel, and so I thought that these really kind of traditional urns would suit that space really well. The garden also does feature a log path that we put through it, so it makes it easy to be able to access the whole garden, but it's also just a really nice little curved path to begin our garden walks that my mom and I like to start every day within the summertime. And so I thought the urns would be beautiful in front of these two boxwoods that we have kind of at the entrance, but I figured this entrance could use a little bit more accentuating. And so the very first thing I need to do is lay down a piece of landscape fabric and extend the garden out a little bit. This area isn't going to be for planting anything, but I'm just gonna mulch it so that it's nice and clean and creates a really, really clear entrance into the garden. So now that the fabric is down, it's time to place the urns. These things are so heavy. I've moved them around the yard many times, and every time I just pray I don't put my back out. I decided to place these directly in front of the boxwoods because we do have this bench that kind of butts up against the corner of the entrance, and so I wasn't really able to offset them, but I think it creates a really nice line where it sort of guides your eye in because the boxwoods are in line with the urns. That's what I'm telling myself at least. So I start any new bed or container with a layer of leaves in the bottom. This is the perfect time of year because we have leaves everywhere in our yard. And so I put a good maybe 6, 7, 8 inches of leaves and then compress them down in the bottom of these urns. Not only does this save on soil, so if you're trying to budget a little bit more, because soil can really add up depending on what you're doing, but it's also just really beneficial for the plants in there and for the soil life to have a little bit more brown organic matter. So then I'm topping up these urns on top of the leaves with a mix of potting soil and cow manure. Now for my absolute favorite thing to do in the garden, mulching. We got this pile of mulch because the city came and was cutting down a dead tree just on the edge of our property at the front. And so we asked them if we could have the wood chips, and they said, sure, but we're doing a few more trees down the road, so you have to take all of them. So we have so much mulch now, but that's a little tip. If by chance that happens to you, then you do have the chance to have a lot of free mulch. I started off with a little bit of a pattern for these planters, and then I just kind of gave up and tried to make them roughly similar. And then I ended up taking the extra plugs that haven't bloomed at all yet, and I just put them in the ground beside the planters. This is something that we did with pansies a few years ago, and they actually lasted in the ground until July, still blooming. And so I think if you put them in containers, it just gets too hot and they end up getting fried in there because the container is so warm. But where we put them in the ground in like a semi-sunny, semi-shaded area, like just sort of dappled sunlight, they went really far into the season. I also added some birch twigs into these planters just to give them a little bit more height. There's not a ton at this time of year that's growing tall, so we'll have to top these planters up for the summertime when more is in bloom. But I think that's one of the most charming parts about spring, is that a lot of things that are growing, a lot of flowers that are in bloom this time of year are very short and delicate, and I think it just eases us into summer really nicely.